Welcome to this edition of PGTips. I'm Gary in Stockholm.
Hi, I'm Paul in Barnsley. Welcome,
Cheers,
everyone.
Paul.
Hi, Gary.
If anyone remembers the last episode, we talked about the two S's to creating good stories, and now we're on to the second S. So tell me a little bit about what we're going to talk about today, Paul.
Yep, we often hear about the two S's of strong writing. Writing scenes, which you said we've covered, and the second part, which follows on automatically, is show, don't tell. And show, don't tell, we hear so many times, it's become like the golden rule of story writing, whether it's picture books or longer early readers or novels. You need to show your reader what's happening. Don't just tell them. You can tell them that someone's thrilled to get an award or someone's really feeling sad, but that makes you an observer. You're looking in at that. You want your reader to be in the story. Give them a reason to feel why your reader is thrilled or not feeling very happy about things. So you've got to make it an immersive experience. We could jump straight to that quote that you see often, Anton Chekhov: "Don't tell me that the moon is shining, show me the glint of light on broken glass." And that kind of encapsulates everything that we're going to be talking about.
Exactly. As soon as one of the key ways to recognize this show don't tell is if we're telling, it's like the moon is or was shining, right? The is or was is almost like a clue to saying, aha, maybe I need to rework this section because maybe right here I'm telling as opposed to showing. And that's one of the key little things that we can hook onto right away. The moon is shining as opposed to there's a glint on the on the water where I'm standing on the dock, right? Then it's like a whole different experience for the reader itself.
Brings your reader right into the story. They can think that they're in there. I like to think of it as, instead of just observing a film or looking at pictures in a book, if you put on a VR headset and you're in, there's some books have been done like that, usually cartoons for kids, but you can be in the story. You want your reader to feel like that. They're in the story. Like in the
Mm,
Gruffalo, you want your reader to be walking through the wood with the mouse, thinking it's a
mm,
deep, dark wood, and there's a
mm,
fox that comes along. If,
mm,
if Julie Donaldson just said, once upon a time, there was a little mouse that lived on the edge of a wood, went for a walk into the wood, and a hungry fox saw the mouse. Same thing, but you're
mm.
not in the skin of that mouse thinking or feeling vulnerable. Because we said
Yeah.
in the last about writing scenes in the last episode, get into the skin of your character.
Mm,
Your character, if you're writing about being scared, think what it's like to be feeling scared.
mm. Yeah, and if you just say the mouse was scared, it's a big difference to say the mouse's knees shook or whatever,
Yeah.
fingers trembled, all that kind of stuff. The
Well,
hair on its little back rose up. It's a big difference than just saying the mouse was scared.
makes you think about it as well, doesn't it? When you're writing, makes
Mm,
you it makes you not lazy, but
yeah.
it stretches your skill as a writer to try and
Mm,
convey that. I try to do that. We've got some mantra sheets, some examples, A4 sheets that you can download in the comments link below from Google Drive. One of them, which I'll read from, is something that I tried in my second Bug Belly book. Um, Little Splodge, the youngest nephew, Froglet, has been kidnapped by a magpie, taken
mm,
to Magpie's nest, along with a golf ball that the little frog had, that the frog thinks is a shooting star. Bugbelly plans a daring rescue, and the short story is that Splodge has got to jump off the branch high up, holding onto a leaf that's like a parachute to get down to safety below
mm.
after Bugbelly's rescued him. And I thought, how can I convey that, whoa, I'm really up high? And I remember as a child going up a high tower and walking on a glass floor, like you see, and
Oh
thinking,
yeah. Yeah.
feeling it in my stomach and feeling my legs. So I thought, try and convey that to a child. So I'll just
Mm,
read what I wrote in the second Bug Belly book. Splodge stood clutching his star on the edge of the branch. He wanted to fly, but whoa, I didn't know we were this high up. His legs turned to jelly, and it felt like a fish was doing a flippy flop in his tummy.
it's a
So
perfect
ho-
example, Paul. Yeah, yeah.
hopefully that conveys to a child, because they've probably maybe already felt that, a child, when they feel a little bit scared. So
Mm,
Don't just say it was high up, Splodge felt scared, but he still jumped off. But a warning, don't overdo this. Don't every sentence, every paragraph, don't be showing, showing, showing. Because telling
Mm,
is useful for brevity, to quickly get from one scene to another, passage of time, and as a counterbalance to your showing. You've got to have a nice balance between them.
mm. Yeah, and the good thing and to thing to remember too is it's okay, like on a first draft, to for you to have written, and Splodge was scared, and then you keep working through your story, so you don't want it to be a hindrance that you get into the next level or depth of writing. This is also part of the rewriting process, so we shouldn't feel that, oh, I put was there, this is bad writing. What it is just a version of the draft. So maybe your first draft, maybe you wrote something like Splodge stood on the edge, he was scared. And then you go through and say, okay, how did it feel? And when you rewrite it, then you work into it, and then you can decide on the amount that you're using. Because we don't want any of the tips to feel like it makes it impossible for us to continue either. So it's just something to remember when we're working on revision. It's super important to feel like it's okay to write and revise and reread and then make changes.
Good point. Because and it's a good way to approach it. Because I think when you are writing, you do just let it flow out, don't you? Just flow out, write it down, and then, as you say, start revising. Look for the
Mm,
points where you want. It's all about pulling the reader into the story,
mm,
snap them into the action,
mm,
and then they want to come back to the book. I mean, you know yourself when you're reading something that's exciting. I almost want to skip a page and go and see what's happening next.
mm,
And then I catch myself thinking, "Wow, that is good writing. That's really pulling me through the book. I'm in that story. I'm
mm,
experiencing what the character is experiencing." We've got some other examples as well. Another quote from C.S. Lewis, and I've got just a very quick one. Monty Mouse was a lonely mouse. C.S. Lewis has said, "Don't tell us things are delightful or someone's lonely. Make
mm,
it say that it's delightful after you've read the description. Make your
mm,
reader feel lonely. All the words, such as using lonely, horrifying, wonderful, hideous, it's saying to your reader, look, I can't be bothered writing this. Can you do the work for me?
mm.
You fill in the blanks." And it stands out in poor writing. When we're looking for it, we can spot it in good writing. But hopefully, good writing, you'll not spot it. You'll just shoot through the story and join
Mm. One of the things that comes up for me, Paul, and then you're hinting on it right here when you talk about this, is that um, how do we get there, right? How do we identify what we can use in in the process of trying to show instead of telling. And there are some different ways to do that. One of the things is we can think of the senses, right? Like you mentioned it, how does it smell, maybe, or how does it feel in your body, right? How does it taste? All the different senses, we can use those as ways to explain how something can be shown as opposed to just telling someone.
it.
Right. So that's one way to do it is this idea of using all of your senses. And I think that there are some other things that we can do, of course, as well. We can introduce the idea of like it's an action. So and again, anytime we're using was or is as a verb, we tend to be lazy in our writing. We tend to be saying, okay, this is fine as a marker, but then we want to really think about how we use the verbs to create action and to create identification. Of course, and you do it perfectly in your example too, with the splodge, is that you use a bit of dialogue. Even though, he's almost like talking to himself, the introduction of dialogue makes it feel much more real, right?
Yeah.
So instead of saying, splodge was really high up, you say, whoa, I didn't know we were this high up. That introduction of dialogue really helps us to identify with the character and feel like, oh, I'm in here with that person or that character. In the setting again, it's part of like this idea of, just to saying this is high, but also describing, how the landscape looks, the using the height or the distance as a kind of an explanation or a way to go deeper into the whole thing, and then using, metaphors is another way to also try to show more and tell. So instead of saying, let's say it was high, say it was bigger than the Empire State Building or something like that. And then, that's a clear example of something that just everyone identifies with as something that's really tall, or it was like scaffolding the Eiffel Tower. Oh, I get it.
That's an excellent point because kids need that reference. Maybe they've not experienced such things, like something blew a hole in the side of the truck as big as your fist would fit through. Yeah, and compare it and give them some kind of reference.
Yeah.
And it's often said that showing uses more words than telling, which might be true, makes for a much more satisfying book, but it doesn't always have to be that way because you can use active verbs. You mentioned about using verbs. Splodge ran quickly through the forest. Splodge dashed through the forest. Single word.
Perfect.
You've lost another word, and it's much more descriptive. Snaps your reader into that story.
Yeah.
And talking about how they feel in situations, hopefully you know everything about how your character will feel because we've covered exploring your character, doing the character study in previous episodes. So you know that Splodge is not scared of heights. He loves the prospect of hang gliding, maybe. So you already know from your character study how your character is going to behave and respond to things. So it's not just writing a story that's all this background information, but it makes it much more satisfying as a writer, an author, creator, and illustrator, I think.
Mm.
Take it seriously and professionally.
And of course, one of the benefits and the beauties of working specifically as a picture book maker as opposed to a picture book writer or a picture book illustrator is that we have a great opportunity to show through pictures, which let's say in a novel we don't, right? We're showing through words
Yeah.
only, but in a picture book, we have the opportunity to also let the language of the illustration speak with the combination of the words. So they're kind of doing a dance or a tango together. And that's another thing to remember, that, the pictures can enhance, add, change, develop, have other kinds of jokes happening, all while the words are saying another thing. So that's another thing that we're fortunate with when we're working with specifically as picture book makers.
A huge advantage to be able to control and manage that synergy between pictures.
Mm,
Good point, that Gary, because I've got a picture book which I think employs some show and not telling. Grandad's
mm,
Island, Benji Davis, fantastic opening spread. I'll show you the spread in a second. Benji Davis could have written, if he was wanting to tell or he'd not put enough effort in. Sid lived so conveniently close to his granddad's house that he would often visit him. Sid was an independent and resourceful young lad. So that tells you everything you need to know. But Benji Davis, like we said, he's got the advantage of having the picture to show us just how close he lives. But the text that he's written, which is a lot more showing, I think, at the bottom of Sid's garden, through the gate and past the tree, was Grandad's house. There was a key under a
wow.
flower pot, and Sid could let himself in any time that he liked. When I first read that, I thought, oh, wow, that's a strange opening, but it says so much. He's independent. They allow him to have his own key. Whenever he likes, he could let himself in. What's going to happen next? What's going to be the adventure that he lets himself in for? And the
Mm,
picture then, it's not lazy. It's not just a picture, but it tells you so much more. It's a cozy untidiness, a comfortable layout of the garden. Sid lives so close, he can just wander straight through there. Look how determined he is there, setting off a
mm,
walk. He's got a mission, he's going in to see his granddad. So I
mm.
love that opening. So picture books, like we said with the Gruffalo, can show and not tell. And you're not going to be lazy with the pictures either. You don't want just a picture that repeats what the words have said. Like you said, have a synergy, have depth to your pictures. I've got another example to finish with. If you do you want to come
Yeah.
back with?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Yeah, let's go to your example
I
that
keep
we.
returning to the mouse and his child, Russell Hoban. Um, it's just a wonderful story, a lovely circular story. I've done some illustrations for it recently. I'd love to illustrate that book, so I've been using that as an exercise to give myself some lessons to illustrate that in monochrome. But I want to go back to the opening of the book, perfectly showing, not telling what's going on. It's an opening scene, um, and as I've said, like with Benji Davis, if he didn't want to put much effort in, he could have got away with writing something less, as could Russell Hoban, and he could have written, "It was Christmas time, cold and snowy. The busy, bustling shoppers didn't have time for the tramp that wandered into town." Now, if you would like to read what he actually written, just to paint that picture in your mind so that you're there.
But instead, he wrote, "The tramp was big and squarely built, and he walked with the rolling stride of the long road, his steps too big for the little streets of the little town. Shivering in his thin coat, he passed aimlessly through the crowd while rosy-faced Christmas shoppers quickened their steps and moved aside to give him room. The gray sky had begun to let down its snow, and the ragged man stood in the middle of the pavement while the soft flakes fell around him and the people quick-stepped past him. Then, with his big, broken shoes printing his footsteps in the fresh snow, he solemnly danced in a circle, swinging his empty arms up and down."
I think you could be stood there in that street, the heavy grey sky. It's not snowing, it's just let down its snow. Maybe it's been waiting and then it's come
Mm,
in. And then he's not just walking in the snow, he's printing his broken footsteps, printing his footsteps in the snow.
mm.
It's just so descriptive and evocative.
I get like
Oh,
goosebumps when I read it out loud, right? Because it does that. I'm there.
mm. And the whole story is like that, with some really horrible graphic moments. It puts you in the picture.
Mm,
But it's full of colour, joy, jokes. I think there's a cartoon, but I think I might have said this before. There's a cartoon version out that I've not yet seen because the stills I saw from it, I thought, oh, they don't do it justice. So I didn't want to watch that and be disappointed. But I think this is ripe for uh, a reshowing, a reproduction. Someone needs to remake this as a
mm.
film. Should we finish there, or do you have
Yeah,
another
I think
example?
I think that's a good place to finish. But I do think it's important to be like a little encouraging again about the revision process. When you read something that's so beautifully written, as Russell Hoban's description here, the opening of the mouse and his child, you feel immediately like, oh my God, wow, beautiful. Um, Chances are, I don't know exactly, his writing process, but chances are it wasn't the first draft that he came out with on this, that it's a process of working with, reading out loud, listening in, putting yourself into the story as a writer, or picture book creator or maker if you're illustrating as well, and really getting the sense of this is the way that the story is best conveyed, like you showed in the Benji Davis example as well. He could have written, um, uh, he lives next door to his granddad. He can go in over anytime he wants, right? But it's not like that at all. It's this whole idea, the way you see him visually striding across with purpose, heading towards his granddad's, to the idea of the way he describes the connecting garden, at the bottom of his garden. And I think it's a process. So yeah, so sometimes we talk about, like, let's say lazy writing or something like that, but what we really want to say is that it's a step in a process, and we shouldn't stop until we feel like we really can enter into that world. And sometimes it means that you have a critique partner like helping you with that, but it should be you driving the question. So the laziness can be like, I think this is good enough. And the activeness could be, hey, can you read this? Because I feel like I want to say this. Is this what you're reading or hearing or seeing when you experience what I've put down?
Yes, I
And
definitely need
and
that
that
now.
Yeah. So we're actively seeking that that experience for the reader. I think
Mm.
that's important as a creator, as a picture book writer, that we're actively seeking that experience. And if we're not getting that experience across, then it's up to us to make the steps, to take the steps to revise it.
Yeah. And there's no need to be intimidated by the amount of work. Put it all down on paper, pull back. And if you start writing more showing or more descriptive episodes, have you gone too far? You can always pull it back, get an overview of it, and having that mirror of someone else giving you the feedback is the perfect way to hear back what you think you've written and what you think's important and what you think is the important action. And people say, "Oh no, it sounds like that's more important." So you do need that feedback.
Mhm.
And can't be many people that's written a first draft and accepted. So there's work involved. But hopefully
Mm,
this will help people realize that. And we've talked
mm,
about in the past of getting unstuck. If you think you did a bump in the road, it's not a brick wall that you can't get round, it's part of the process. So don't be intimidated, work it out, keep going. Oh, I think that's it from me.
and that's it from me. Cheers, Paul.
Cheers. Thanks, Gary. See you next time. Bye, everybody.
See you next time. Bye, everyone.